All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to do something cool. So here I have an array of all of the periodic table elements. And on the right, if I type in any string, it's going to check if, hey, are all of the characters in my string displayable with any of these symbols for the elements? And if so, it's going to render. Okay, so windy works, but if I do wind, it's not going to work. Okay, now let's see why. It finds W, it finds IN, but there's no periodic table starting with D, so it doesn't work. But the cool thing is, let's say for windy, for IN, it's actually looking for the longer element name. So even when we type in IN, it's going to give us indium and not I with nitrogen. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So if we go here, I just have two functions. So this is the function that we're going to talk about. Okay, so all that this function does is that it's going to take a string and then it's going to create an array of all of the possible shorthand symbol names. And then I'm going to pass that array into render chosen elements. And all that's going to do is that it's going to get the information from our helper object, and then it just renders to the HTML. So first of all, why did I create this helper object? Well, this helper object is really useful. If you look on the right, it's now a new object where all the property key names are the keys that we're looking for, right? Like the symbol shorthand, okay? And its value is the whole object. And with this, we can later on use the in keyword, which is going to help our algorithm a lot. Okay, so when they click on spell, I get the input, then I trim it. I let count equal to 0, I let an empty array here. So instead of using recursion like most people do, I'll just use a while loop. And yes, you can do this as well. So we're going to run this while loop as long as count is less than the input string dot length. Yeah. So as long as it's less than this, what do we want to do? Well, let's say our string was windy. What we want to do is we're starting with the W. We're going to see, hey, take the W and the letter next to it and check, hey, in our helper object, are there any property key names that matches WI? If so, we're going to push WI into our answers array. If not, don't try WI, but try W. Okay? If W works, then push in W. If none of those work, then just move on to N and D and try again. Okay. Oh, I mean I and N, and then try again. Okay. So now, how do I get the first two characters? I do const both characters is equal to input dot slice, and I'm going to slice from the count to the count plus 2 because I'm taking two characters with me every time I slice. Then I can do const first character is going to be equal to both characters at 0. Okay, and now we can actually just finish this up with some if statements. So I'm going to say if both character strings are in our helper object, okay, and this is why we created the helper object using reduce, so we can use in right here. You could have also done a helper object at both characters. So if both these are in, then our answer array is going to push both character strings in. And then our count has to go up by 2. Okay, so this means, hey, if it finds, let me do B. Since BE actually matches, right, our count is going to go up by 2 so that the next time it starts at A instead. All right, and then right here, we can do else if. So if it doesn't match both characters, what happens if you just try one character in help object? Okay, if that matches, we're going to push in just the first character, right? And now the count just goes up by 1. But you also need to take into account if none of them match. If none of them match, the count still needs to go up by 1 for everything to work properly. Okay, so after this while loop finishes, let's console.log our answer ARR. We should be done with all of the possible strings, okay? And then since now we have an array of possible strings, we can now just call render chosen elements, passing in our answers array like this. Okay, so now on the right, if I check something like, let's say, wow, it works, right? Let's check windy. Cool. Let's check. What's a really long one? Oh, I know that actions also work. Notice how it's taking the AC and the TY. So it's taking what we actually want, longest to shortest. Okay, what if we do equal right here? Okay, so you see for equal, it cannot find the E. So it's only returning the U, which it finds, and then the AL. But what if we only wanted to display the elements if everything matches? So how do we do that? Well, after this while loop finishes and we have our answers array, we can actually check if, hey, if the answer array, it's a string in an array, if we join it and it actually matches the input that the user gave us, right? Then we know that all the characters match. Okay. And then if not, we can do alert cannot match full word. Okay, so now if I do wind, cannot match full word, okay? Because there's no element that starts with D. But windy will work because dysprosium. Okay. All right, I hope that was helpful. I like this a lot better than the recursive way because it's a lot more readable.